What is up, YouTube? It's Lions Fan Express coming at you with that man-to-man press. And in today's video, we're going to start a new series. It's going to be my top 5 players at each position for the 2023 NFL Draft. We're going to start it this week, leading up to the NFL Combine, and then we'll also have some like post-combine results as well, leading up to the NFL Draft. But yeah, basically, I watched a lot of film and just kind of compiled my top 5 players at each position, so we can kind of know who's the elite talent at those positions, what teams should be looking at for those players, and what kind of makes them good prospects in my eyes, just based on what I've seen. And also just I think it'd be kind of a fun series to kind of dive into leading up to the combine and the draft. So today we're actually going to start with the most polarizing position on the field, definitely the most demanding and hardest position to play at the NFL level, and that's going to be quarterback. I think that there's a handful of great quarterbacks in this class, definitely a step up above of what we had last year. And I thought we kind of just break it down, look at these prospects, and see what kind of makes them a good fit. So with that being said, we're gonna dive on in. So at number 5, I actually have Anthony Richardson from Florida. He's 6'4", 232 pounds. He's a redshirt sophomore. When you look at his stats, he had 2,500 passing yards, 17 pass touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, with a QBR of 71.2, which was about 30th in college football. And then he also added about 600 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns on the ground. So one thing that just jumps off right off the bat is that he's a dual threat quarterback, and he's very dynamic. His ability to make plays with his arms and legs is it's one of a kind, in my opinion. Some of the plays that he makes you just kind of sit there and go, wow. Like, you don't really see that a lot, but he has a lot of these attributes that I can see why teams would definitely like him. Like I said, he's big, he's athletic, he's got a big arm that can push it down vertically down the field with ease. Again, he's a dual threat, so he can scramble out the pocket and make plays with his legs as well. So he has a lot of those good traits that teams look for in a quarterback. He's very raw, though. He definitely needs some time to develop in the right system, possibly a year or two, just to be able to adjust to the game, because he's only a sophomore. Like, he's very young still, and even on his tape, like, he had issues with inaccuracy and not sensing pressure, and just sometimes making some really almost like rookie mistakes. So basically, I thought that in my opinion, I think that his comp is kind of like a Cam Newton or maybe like an RG3 coming out of college. Definitely dynamic players in their own right, and just the ability to make plays with your arm and leg is definitely key, especially in this day and age when the NFL is definitely going more towards a dual threat kind of system. But he's the biggest big or bust or boom prospect, in my opinion. Like, if he booms and he hits his potential, he's definitely one of the best quarterback prospects in this class. If he busts, though, it's taking a gamble, because he could honestly not end up working out, because he needs a lot of training and a lot of work to do to clean up his mistakes. So ultimately, it depends on the team. I personally think that he's a day 2 prospect. I think a lot of teams are going to value him higher than that, just based on his potential, and probably pick him in the first round, let alone that maybe the top 10 even. So, which I think is, again, I can understand why. I just think that is a risk that a team, that if they're willing to take, they got to take it. But if it's me, I'd be a little bit hesitant to do that. But he's a good prospect, but he's definitely not the best. Therefore, I have him at my number 5 spot. So at number 4, I actually have Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. He's a redshirt senior. He's 6'4", 218 pounds. Before he had the season-ending ACL injury late in the year, he was actually on track to be a Heisman winner this year with his stats. He had 31,000 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. And he had a QBR of 89.5, which is actually first in college football. So right off the bat, he's got the stats. He really is really good with the ball. He doesn't turn the ball over, rarely at all. Very effective with that, very efficient. He had a 69.6% completion rate, which is also, I think, in the top 10. So very accurate with the ball. very smart with the ball, and then he's a dual threat. He's able to use his legs, scramble, get some yards, and yeah, he's not as dynamic as an athlete. I think that Anthony Richardson is, but he's in his own right, he's definitely a player that can make plays, with his arm and with his leg. Was really impressed with him this season. It's unfortunate that his injury happened late in the season with his ACL, so that's going to, I think, hurt his value overall. And then the fact that he is an older prospect. He is 25, I believe, and he's going to be 26 sometime during the 2023 NFL season. So ultimately, I think teams are definitely going to have to weigh the pros and cons when it comes to Hendon Hooker. But to me, he doesn't really need a lot of developing. Like, I feel like he's really more of a pro-ready quarterback than most of these quarterbacks are. You just have to give him some time to heal, which would be great. You put him in a system where there's a quarterback in front of him, and then he just takes some time to heal, and then you can kind of like slide him in once he's ready to go. And yeah, I think that he wouldn't really miss a beat because he's just that great of a football player, and he's he just kind of carries himself in that way. So ultimately, I'm actually really big on Hendon Hooker. I think that he is probably more of a second to third round, most likely a third round pick. I could see maybe a team taking a chance on him in the second round, but I definitely don't see him getting drafted in the first round. Just again based off those his age and also his injury. But yeah, he's definitely a good prospect that teams should consider, and he's definitely a high floor player. And I think a team can definitely take a chance on him on day 2, and there's a kind of almost like a lower risk of taking him than it is with Anthony Richardson, which is kind of crazy because he's the one that's coming off the injury, and he's the older prospect. But I also think that he's got the better tape and the better stats and the higher ceiling to start off. So you're really not taking that much of a risk on a player that can kind of come in and play at a high level once he heals up. So yeah, and then at number 3 for me, I actually have Will Levis from Kentucky. He's a redshirt senior. He's 6'3", 232 pounds. This season, he had 2,400 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And he had a QBR of 60.9, which was 59th in college football. I'm really conflicted with Will Levis because I actually started watching his film last season. I thought he was coming out, but he decided to stay for another year at Kentucky. Which I understood, he's trying to increase his draft stock. I didn't think that he was going to be a very high pick last year, but I really liked his film. I thought he had some upside. I thought he had definitely had some NFL pro-ready traits that teams would definitely like. He's got the size, and he's also got some other traits as well that kind of make him a potential prospect that teams would like. But yeah, his 2022 season was very disappointing in my opinion. I thought he was going to make the jump. He didn't. In fact, he regressed in a lot of areas. He still had a lot of turnovers with 10 interceptions. He struggled with his accuracy at times, and he had the lack of ability to sense pressure because he was sacked 36 times, which again, not all his fault. Some of it has to do with his offensive line, and he didn't have a whole lot of weapons and stuff around him. I think what makes him such a good prospect though is he was working with an NFL coach with his coach at Kentucky, and then also the fact that he's demonstrated some times when he can really ball out and make some plays as a passer and sometimes as a runner as well. He's got, again, good arm talent. I think that's another trait that a lot of people look at him and kind of say, wow, he's I think really what they try to see in him is that he's Josh Allen 2.0. And I'm not saying that he can't be Josh Allen. I'm just saying that the likelihood of that is very slim. I think that he could be a good prospect. I'm not sold on him being a first round pick, let alone a top 10 pick. In my opinion, he's a day 2 pick, just based off his production and his film from this year. But again, he's going to get picked in the top 10. And in fact, he could potentially go number 1, be the first quarterback off the board, just because some teams they value those NFL pro-ready traits so much, like the Colts and some other teams that could be picking in the top 10, that they might see him as a better option than even the guys I have in front of him, which I can understand. It's just, to me, I wouldn't take that risk because he struggled this season. He didn't improve. He didn't go to the Senior Bowl, and he opted out of his bowl game, which a lot of players do, and I'm not knocking him for that necessarily. Again, you got to do what you got to do to help yourself. But at the end of the day, it's like you're not really. It'll be surprising to see what he does during the combine, if he's going to throw or not. Because if he decides to throw, great, we can actually see him throw a little bit, break it down better, compare him to some of the other quarterbacks that are throwing with him on that day. But if he decides to opt out, that really kind of worries me a little bit, because the only time he'd probably actually throw is at his pro day. And let's be honest, pro days are fluff for any player because they're designed to make you look better than maybe you are, or to basically take what's good, what you have that's good, and make it look elite or look better. So almost like makeup in a way. So basically, Will Levis, again, I'm not super high on him. I do have him as my third quarterback just because I think he is overall a better prospect that can play more right away than the other two, Hendon Hooker and Anthony Richardson. Just based off of that, again, he's a little bit of an older prospect as well. So when it comes to time to develop, you don't have maybe as much time to develop him. But yeah, I just don't see him being. I don't know. I'm not high on him. I don't want to say he's going to be a bust right away because I don't want to, Again, I'm rooting for all these players that they can go chase their dreams and be, NFL stars. But when I just watched his tape this season, I just wasn't impressed. And I know that there's other people out there that kind of agree with that. So if you guys, like I said, if you guys are high on Will Levis, let me know down below. I just, I'd love to have a discussion. I just don't see him being that type of prospect, especially compared to the other two that I have in front of him in this list. And getting to that, I actually have at number 2, C.J. Stroud from Ohio State. Now, he's a junior. He's 6'3", 218 pounds. His 2022 stats, he had 3,600 passing yards, 41 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And he had a QBR of 88.9, which is second only to Hendon Hooker in college football. So C.J. Stroud, I mean, he's got, like I said, when you look at his stats, he's definitely got some Ohio State quarterback stats. He had a lot of touchdowns and minimal interceptions. Fairly accurate with the ball as well. C.J. Stroud, I think the thing that makes him interesting is, like, when I watch his film, he's very, like I said, he's very accurate, has very good ball placement. He's a pocket passer with the ability to, improvise. So if, things get rough, he has the ability in the legs and athleticism to get out the pocket and, hold on to the ball long enough to make plays. Again, he can scramble, but he prefers not to. He likes to sit more in the pocket and be more of a passer than a runner, but I've seen him, run, so he definitely has that ability to do that. To me, I know that, there's a stigma behind Ohio State quarterbacks, and I've seen that for the longest time. Like, when the list goes on and on and on, like all the way back to like even before, but like Terrell Pryor, Braxton Miller, like, Cardell Jones, J.T. Barrett. Like, that's no disrespect to those guys. They were great college quarterbacks, but the transition from college to NFL never translated. And in fact, a lot of times they had to switch positions because they just couldn't get the quarterback position right. And it's unfortunate because, you look at the latest quarterback to come out of Ohio State, and that was Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, he's definitely, like I said, he's a good player. He's a dynamic athlete. He can, run and pass. But he's more of a runner in his career right now than he is a passer, and he's kind of struggling a little bit to find his rhythm in the NFL. So I don't know what it is with Ohio State quarterbacks. I don't know if it's like they just have like really good teams, or if it's the system, or if it's the type of quarterbacks they recruit. The coaching, I have no idea if they just don't prepare them well enough for the NFL. But basically, Ohio State quarterbacks in the past just have not worked out. Now, C.J. Stroud, if there's anybody to break that, I think C.J. Stroud could do that. I think that C.J. Stroud, when it comes to like all these prospects, like even when it comes to Justin Fields, I think he's actually a better prospect than him. I think that he is one of the best Ohio State quarterback draft prospects to come out, in a long time. and he's got the pro size. Again, he's an accurate passer and a sneaky good athlete, and he can improvise outside the pocket. Again, he does get a little rattled sometimes under pressure. So if defenders are coming into his face, he makes some poor decision making with the ball, and that can lead to like turnovers. Saw that against Michigan, and saw that against some other teams as well. But when it came to like his last game against Georgia, I mean, he was tearing them up. That was the best defense in college football this year, and he was able to just dissect the defense and just pick it apart one by one. And he had his best game of the year on the biggest stage, and it showed that he can definitely play with the big boys. So to me, he's definitely a prospect that I think that teams are going to love. And in fact, I'm actually pretty high on myself. And he honestly could even be a quarterback one in a lot of people's mock drafts and on their boards, because he just has all these traits that you look for in a quarterback. Again, the only thing that kind of knocks him is, again, being an Ohio State quarterback and that not working out. And at some point, it's going to break. And I truly think that it could break with C.J. Stroud, and he just needs to be put in the right system. So, really great prospect, really high on him. Unfortunately, I have him as my second, which leads me to my first, and that's going to be quarterback Bryce Young from Alabama. Now, Bryce Young is a very interesting prospect in his own right, because the former Heisman, this season he had 3,300 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and an 86.2 QBR, which was sixth. So a lot of these quarterbacks have great QBRs. Like, they were able to do well with their respective teams and perform well and lead these teams, to victory. Bryce Young in Alabama, they struggled a little bit this year. I know he dealt with injuries early in the season. They weren't able to win the big games that they wanted to. But when it comes to Bryce Young as a prospect, he has all these things that makes him a great prospect. Like, if you just take a look, he's got a good arm, he's accurate, he's got good decision making, and then he's got the clutch factor. Like when the going gets tough, when his team is down, he can go X factor mode and just take this team down the field and score and put up points. Like, it's just shown. And even again with playing for Alabama, a lot of people are going to be like, well, he played for Alabama, he's got all these players around him, kind of like the Ohio State kind of thing. But I mean, sure, he had a lot of great players, last year, and even like this year, he had some good players, but it wasn't to the level that Ohio State or Alabama quarterbacks are used to having. And he still was able to have a really great season without having the weapons that he's usually has. So he's mobile in the pocket, he's a rhythm thrower, he fits the ball into tight zones, which is pretty crazy. He can just put the ball in between defenders, get it where it needs to be. He anticipates, and he can throw receivers open. And I think he's better than both Tua, Mac Jones, and Jalen Hurts coming out of college. I really think that he's a better quarterback prospect. And look how those quarterbacks are doing in the NFL. Like, they're starting, and they're leading their team, to wins. So I think that Bryce Young, the only thing that's gonna really people are gonna knock him on is just his lack of height. He's listed at 6 foot. There's been photos going around of him standing next to people, and you probably get the sense of that he's probably not 6 foot. He's probably more like 5'10" and a half, maybe 5'11". So he's definitely on the shorter side of a quarterback that you would want in an NFL quarterback. A lot of times you want to have at least a quarterback that's maybe 6'1", 6'2", and above, because they can, it opens up the field. They can see across the middle. They can see over the linemen. And it makes it easier for a quarterback to be able to dissect the defense. Now, he didn't have issues with that at Alabama, so to me that's not a huge issue. He reminds me a lot of like Drew Brees, honestly, like a more athletic Drew Brees, because he's got the ability to scramble and improvise outside the pocket as well. But when it comes to just like sitting in there in the pocket, he delivers the throws where it needs to be. And ultimately, I think that, Bryce Young, you're going to either love him or you're going to hate him as a prospect because of, again, he's got all the tools, all those things that you kind of look for in a quarterback, just minus the height and the weight. He does need to add some weight to his frame. Like he's only like 194 pounds, and he definitely needs to add at least 5 to 10 pounds at least to just bulk up a little bit so he can take NFL hits. Because granted, he took hits at Alabama, but the NFL is different. Like you got to be able to go through a full length of a season without getting injured, and that's a big thing too. Can he stay healthy? That's it's his size and his health that really kind of hold him back, I think, from some people being super high on him. But again, when it comes to just film, he's got it. That he can ball, he can play, and all these quarterbacks can play in their own right. I just have some guys valued higher than others, and it is what it is. Like it depends too on your system. Like if you want more of a pocket passing quarterback, then you're probably not going to take a guy like Anthony Richardson, for example. You probably take more of a CJ Stroud, who can just sit in the pocket and deliver the ball, or Will Levis. If you want more of a guy that can scramble a little bit, but also sit in the pocket and make throws and be accurate, Bryce Young's your guy. So it's like it really just depends on what type of offense you run and what you're looking for in a quarterback. But ultimately, that's kind of my breakdown of the quarterback class. And there's a handful of quarterbacks behind these guys that I think that have a shot potentially at being like some diamond in the rough type players, or maybe even like just solid backups in the NFL. But ultimately, I think these top 5 quarterbacks, they're going to be the top 5 quarterbacks that are taken off the board. Maybe not necessarily in this order, but they're definitely going to get drafted, and they're going to get drafted high. So that's kind of my breakdown of the quarterback class. I know it was kind of long, but I just kind of got really excited and wanted to talk about this position specifically. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of, going through this week, every day we're just going to do a different position. I'm just going to break it down and give you guys my thoughts and opinions on that, because I think a lot of times is when we listen to people and we watch things, they say, like, for example, they'll say like, okay, Bryce Young is a great player, or Bryce Young isn't a great player, or whoever, like, but they won't like explain why. So for me, it's very valuable to just go on, watch film, and do my homework on it, so I know going into it, the draft, what type of player these guys are and why people are high on them or why they're not. And ultimately, I think that these guys are, especially at the top, are great options if people are looking for quarterbacks. So, and even when it comes to like the my Detroit Lions, and this is going to be another video that I get out sometime this week, but basically, it's one of those things where it's like, man, if one's sitting there at 6, some of the fans are saying, you take them. Some fans are saying trade down, like, so that's gonna be something that we're definitely gonna get into a little bit, later in this week. But ultimately, yeah, that's my breakdown of these quarterbacks. If you guys have any questions about these guys, or if you disagree with any of these rankings, feel free to let me know down below. I'd love to have a discussion with you guys. And yeah, we're just going to keep, putting out some more content. I think our next position, we're just going to kind of go in order. I'll probably do running backs next, and just kind of do the whole offense side of the ball. And then we'll do the defensive side of the ball after that. And yeah, we'll just kind of have some fun with it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share it. And yeah, as always, go Lions.